Long before jack-o'-lanterns glowed on doorsteps, before candy and costumes and laughter in the streets, there was fire. Great bonfires crackling on cold hills beneath a harvest moon. In the old Celtic lands, they called this night Samhain, the time when the light of summer died and the long dark began. The people believed the world itself thinned as the season turned, that the boundary between the living and the dead grew porous, like breath on glass. Spirits crossed easily then, some gentle, some not. To keep the balance, villages built their fires high, feeding them with oak and prayers, flames to warm the living and to guide the dead. Families set out offerings at their doorways, bowls of grain, cups of milk, a little bread. They did not leave them out of fear, but respect. The spirits who returned on Samhain were not strangers. They were ancestors, mothers, fathers, children long gone, stepping briefly across the border of time. Yet not all who walked the night were welcome. In the smoke and wind were darker things. Wanderers, tricksters, lost souls looking for warmth they no longer remembered. People wore animal skins and painted their faces to confuse these beings, disguising themselves so that the dead would pass them by. This was the first costume, the first mask against the unknown. And when dawn finally broke over the frost-silvered fields, the people thanked the spirits for passing peacefully. But deep down, they knew the veil would thin again. It always did. Centuries later, when the old gods had faded and new faiths rose, the church sought to tame Samhain's fire. All Hallows' Day was born, a feast to honor saints and martyrs. The night before became All Hallows' Eve, later Halloween. The bonfires were blessed, the prayers rewritten, but the heartbeat beneath them never changed. The people still lit candles in windows, still whispered the names of the lost. They carved faces into hollowed turnips, grim smiles to frighten away wandering souls. When the Irish crossed the ocean centuries later, they found pumpkins in the New World, and the glowing lantern was reborn. In every shadow of Halloween lingered the same belief that shaped Samhain, that once a year the dead remember us, and we in turn remember them. Children played games of prophecy, apples bobbing in bowls of water, mirrors darkened with candlelight, hoping to glimpse the face of a future love. Beneath the laughter lay something older, the instinct to ask the unseen what tomorrow might bring. For on this night, knowledge itself felt loose, as if truth and dream had swapped places. And so the fires burned again, this time beneath crosses instead of moons, but still fed by the same need to know that what we love does not end with death. But every sacred night needs its stories. As the centuries turned, villagers began to tell them tales of spirits that refused rest, of witches dancing where the earth still held fire, of things that moved between light and shadow. In Ireland, they spoke of the Dullahan, a headless horseman who rode with a whip made from a human spine, calling out the names of those destined to die before the year's end. He carried his own head under his arm, its grin glowing faintly in the dark. When the Dullahan stopped riding, someone's fate was sealed. Parents told their children to keep their gates locked on Samhain night, for fear that his horse's hooves might stop at their door, yet they told it with awe, not hatred. For the Dullahan was not evil. He was inevitability given shape, death on its appointed errand. Elsewhere, they whispered of the burning man of Samhain Hill, a spirit said to appear when the last bonfire died too early. He wandered the dark fields, glowing like ember and ash, searching for a flame to rekindle his form. If he found no fire, he would knock upon doors and ask, in a voice like crackling wood, "May I share your light?" Those who refused him woke to ashes on their doorstep. Each story was a lesson, that warmth must be shared and the night respected. Across the misty highlands of Scotland, Samhain took on its own shape. There they believed that crossroads were doors, and that at midnight the souls of the departed gathered where two paths met. Travelers would leave small offerings, coins, candles, or pieces of bread, to keep the spirits calm and the journey home undisturbed. Those who ignored the custom risked hearing their names called on the wind, voices soft, familiar, and wrong. The old people said that if you turned and answered, your spirit would follow the call, never to return. They told of the whispering souls of Edinburgh, ghostly figures said to appear at the edge of lamplight. They moved in silence, their faces hidden, their shadows too long for their bodies. If one ever spoke to you, it would ask a question only you could answer, and the truth you gave would bind your fate for the coming year. Some met them with prayer, others with whiskey, but most simply crossed the street and walked faster. Even so, the stories spread, winding through taverns and fire-lit rooms, stories of voices that carried across centuries, warning those who listened that the veil between the living and the dead was thinner than anyone dared believe. And every year as autumn returned, the same unease rose again, a shiver that said the world was about to change its skin. In England, the night of Samhain merged with another old rite, the season of remembering the dead. Church bells tolled for souls, and prayers filled the air like smoke. Yet in quiet villages and lonely moors, the older ways refused to die. People still carved faces into root vegetables, still carried lanterns through the dark. They spoke of witches who gathered under the crescent moon, not to curse, but to guard the turning of the year. To the fearful, they were sinister. To the wise, they were keepers of balance. There were tales of women who could speak to the wind, who lit candles in hollow stones so the spirits would not lose their way. They said these witches wore crowns of ivy and bones, their voices rising in ancient hymns that the church had long forbidden. To cross one of them was folly, but to show them kindness, a loaf, a coin, a whispered blessing, could earn protection for the year to come. Over time, their memory blurred with fear. The word witch became a shadow. And yet, every Halloween, when fires burned low and the moon grew pale, people still felt the urge to leave something small on their doorsteps, just in case. Because deep down they knew that gratitude and caution often share the same shape. By the 15th century, the night of Samhain had become a tapestry of belief, part Christian, part pagan, part human longing for what lies beyond. The bells of All Hallows rang through cathedrals, while the bonfires still burned on the hills. One spoke of saints, the other of spirits, yet both honored the same truth, that death was not the end. People told stories to keep that truth alive. The lantern man, the silent maid, the watchers at the crossroads, each tale different, but each carrying the same flicker of warning. And so fear became ritual, and ritual became tradition. Children dressed as ghosts to mock the dead and please them at once. Neighbors shared food to keep mischief at bay. What had begun as sacred became communal, and the night of shadows turned into a celebration of survival. Even the church began to soften, blessing candles and calling the old customs harmless. But the people knew better. They knew that the laughter of Halloween was only a disguise, a way of whistling in the dark. Because laughter, like fire, keeps fear at a distance, even if just for one night. When the great ships crossed the Atlantic, they carried more than people. They carried stories. The Irish and Scottish settlers brought their Samhain nights with them, tucked inside memory and song. The New World was vast, wild, and unfamiliar, but its long autumn shadows felt strangely like home. In the fields of the colonies, they found a new symbol of light, the pumpkin. Larger, easier to carve, it glowed brighter than any turnip or gourd they had known. And so the old faces returned, jagged smiles, wide eyes, their candles flickering in the October wind. The people said those glowing pumpkins kept away wandering spirits, just as they had in Ireland. But others whispered that the light did more than repel. It invited. It showed the dead where to find warmth and remembrance in a strange land. As generations passed, the meaning changed, but never vanished. The night of Samhain became Halloween, part harvest, part haunting, part homecoming. Children played games around the fire. Adults shared ghost stories beneath falling leaves. In this new country, the night of the dead became a night for the living to remember where they came from. And across every small town, from the lanterns on porches to the laughter in the streets, the echo of ancient fire still burned quietly beneath the modern glow. By the 19th century, Halloween had grown restless again. The old fears softened, replaced by mischief and play. In towns and villages, children roamed in masks and sheets, knocking on doors, calling for cakes or coins. The tradition was called souling, a remnant of the old prayer for the dead customs, reborn as a game. They said a child's song on Halloween could bring good luck to the household and protection from the darker spirits still wandering beyond the gate. In return, families left sweets or little loaves called soul cakes by the fire. As America grew, these fragments of old belief mixed with new invention. Trick-or-treating took form. Laughter wrapped around the memory of fear. The costumes grew brighter, the spirits less solemn, but the meaning lingered just beneath the surface, that on this night the world still leaned a little closer to its reflection. And somewhere between laughter and legend, the old ways found new life. Every door that opens to a knock on Halloween still echoes that first offering of bread and milk, that same hope whispered under the breath that kindness can keep the dark at bay. Yet in every generation, some still feel the deeper current that runs through the celebration. Those who pause by candlelight or walk beneath a clouded moon know that Halloween remains more than a holiday. It is a moment of remembering, a night when the veil between what was and what is grows thin once more. Strange things are said to happen even now. A door creaks though the wind is still. A scent of smoke drifts through a room with no fire. A shadow passes behind you, soft as thought. Skeptics call it imagination. Believers call it proof. But those who listen closely hear something else, a welcome. Not all ghosts come to frighten. Some simply come home. So when you light a candle this Halloween, remember the ancient fires, the faces carved against the dark, the voices that once sang across the hills to keep the world in balance. Because every flame you light is an answer to a question asked long ago. Are we still here? And the glow that returns through the window says, yes, we are. As the centuries turned, Halloween began to wear many faces. Beneath the laughter, older fears still whispered. The veil was thinner than ever, and people said that if you stood at a crossroads at midnight, you could meet a stranger with a shadow that moved on its own. Some called him the Dark Gentleman, others the Devil at the Gate. He was not the roaring monster of sermons, but a soft-spoken figure, courteous, curious, asking what you most desired. He offered gifts, wealth, talent, knowledge, but always for a price. Some claimed he simply tested the living to see what they valued most. There are still tales from the Scottish borders of fiddlers who played at the crossroads on Halloween night and woke to find their music changed forever. Their songs were haunting, beautiful, but those who listened said the notes never ended properly, as if the melody itself refused to die. The crossroads was more than a meeting of roads. It was a meeting of worlds, the place where choices could tilt the balance between shadow and light. To walk there on Halloween was to walk a line between faith and fear, and sometimes that is exactly where we find ourselves, even now. While men feared bargains in the dark, they feared women, who understood it even more. The witches of Halloween became symbols of that fear, midwives, healers, and wise women whose knowledge outlasted superstition. They were said to gather on Samhain's eve, lighting hidden fires to keep the old world turning. Their rituals, twisted by rumor, were called unholy, but their purpose was always balance. They tended to the earth when others sought to command it. In village tales, they rode through the night on broomsticks, a poor translation of an older truth. The broom was the staff of hearth and harvest, the tool that swept away evil from the threshold. To ride it meant to cross into spirit, to travel between worlds. Some stories say that on Halloween night, if you leave your door open and your hearth burning, an old woman may pass through your house, a flicker of gray in the corner of your eye, and bless your home for another year. Those who mocked her were not so lucky, for every charm has its shadow, and every kindness its cost. The witches were never truly gone. They only learned to whisper. Then came the ghosts, not the polite spirits of Samhain, nor the patient watchers of Highclere, but the restless kind, born of guilt and unfinished stories. Halloween became their hour, the one night they could speak again, if only to ask for peace. Villagers left candles in windows to guide them, calling them soul lights. The custom was ancient, to show the lost where home once was. On stormy nights, travelers swore they saw whole processions of the dead moving through the fields, their faces pale as fog, their lanterns swaying like stars. They said that if you looked too long, you might see someone you knew, someone who had gone before you. The bravest left bread and milk at the roadside, whispering, "Safe passage." The fearful hid under blankets, hoping the dead would pass by. But no one truly feared them, not really. There was something familiar in their silence, something human. The dead, after all, were only doing what the living do, trying to find their way home. And on Halloween, the world gives them that chance. When Halloween crossed into the New World, it carried its whispers with it. But the Puritans of early America had no place for spirits that walked freely. They saw the old fires as pagan, the masks as deceit, the laughter as temptation. For them, the night belonged to devils, not the dead. Yet even stern faith cannot quiet the wind. The colonists still felt the same unease when October's chill arrived, still saw pale lights in the woods, still heard the echo of their names where no one stood. They told themselves it was nothing, and then they told stories. In New England, these tales took on a new shape. Witches no longer danced at the edges of the harvest. They were said to live among neighbors, unseen and watching. Fear grew roots in the soil, and from it sprouted legends. By the time of the Salem trials, Halloween's ghosts had changed faces. The old reverence was gone, replaced by suspicion. The night of remembrance had become a night of accusation. But still, behind closed doors, candles burned. And sometimes, when the fields were silent and the moon hung low, even the most devout whispered a small prayer into the dark, just in case the dead were listening. Over time, America began to soften again. As the frontier grew, the country filled with new superstitions, old world spirits meeting new world soil. Travelers spoke of will-o'-the-wisps flickering over marshes, blue lights said to be the souls of the lost. Farmers told of haunted barns and phantom riders crossing open plains. In sleepy towns, Halloween became a night of storytelling. Families gathered around hearths, retelling the same strange accounts. Ghostly soldiers marching at midnight, women in white drifting through the woods, horses that vanished at dawn. It was fear turned into wonder. The ghosts no longer came to punish. They came to remind. Writers and poets gave these tales new life. Washington Irving's Sleepy Hollow carried echoes of the Dullahan, that ancient headless rider reborn in a new land. Each retelling stitched the old world to the new, until Halloween became something larger than either, a bridge between memory and imagination. And through every version, one truth remained, that the night itself is alive and it remembers us. By the 20th century, Halloween had transformed again. The ghosts no longer belonged to fear or faith. They belonged to tradition. Streets glowed with pumpkins, laughter replaced whispers, and the dark became a playground. But even as children filled the night with joy, the deeper pulse of Halloween never faded. It hid behind every candle, every mask, every flicker of a costume's shadow. Every door that opens on Halloween echoes the same ancient invitation. Come in, traveler, share our fire, we remember you. And every candle placed by a window answers the same old question. Are we alone in the dark? The light's reflection still whispers back, never. The festival of Samhain became a season of belonging, proof that even in an age of electricity and noise, the heart still craves mystery. Because what began as fire on a hill has become something greater, a ritual of remembrance carried by laughter. The old ghosts still walk, but now they smile. Halloween, at its heart, has always been more than fright. Beneath the masks and stories lies a quiet truth. We celebrate fear because it lets us hold the unknown without being devoured by it. From the first fires of Samhain to the glowing pumpkins of today, the meaning has never really changed. It is our night to look darkness in the eye, to laugh at it, to walk beside it, to understand that the shadow is part of the world and part of us. Psychologists say that fear shared becomes excitement, and that excitement shared becomes ritual. That is why the heart beats faster when the lights go out, not from danger, but from recognition. Somewhere deep inside, we remember those ancient nights when the village gathered close, the wind howled, and every spark in the fire felt sacred. Halloween gives us permission to meet that feeling again, to paint our faces, to chase ghosts, to tell stories that end with nervous laughter, and in doing so, we honor what our ancestors knew instinctively, that courage is not the absence of fear, but the friendship of it. That is why, even now, we turn the lights low, light a candle, and wait for the whisper at the door. Fear binds people together, but so does memory. The ghosts of Halloween are not just those who died. They are the people we once were, the child who hid under the blanket, the friend we lost touch with, the loved one whose voice still echoes faintly in our dreams. When the world darkens early and the air turns sharp, something in us begins to listen. We sense the presence of all those moments, all those souls that shaped us. They hover like candlelight, reminding us that nothing truly fades. Perhaps that is why Halloween feels different from any other night. It is not only about the dead returning, it is about the living remembering. Every costume, every story, every flicker of a jack-o'-lantern flame is an offering, a way of saying, we have not forgotten. And when the shadows lengthen and the laughter fades, something gentle remains, a feeling that the world is still full of wonder, even in its darkest corners. That feeling is the real magic of Halloween. If you walk through any town on Halloween night, you will hear it, not just the laughter of children, but the sound beneath it, that low hum of anticipation, of the world holding its breath. It is as though time itself slows, giving the living and the dead a moment to overlap. Every flickering candle is a bridge, every open door a memory waiting to be shared. Some believe that on this night, the spirits of our ancestors walk beside us, unseen but near. Others say it is only the wind, but maybe it does not matter. What matters is that we still light the fire. We still honor the dark. Halloween has endured because it speaks a language older than words, the language of connection. When the last costume is folded away and the lanterns are dark, that language still lingers in the air, whispering that love and memory are stronger than fear. That is what Samhain always meant, and what Halloween still means today. In every generation, the shape of Halloween changes, yet its soul remains the same. It moves with us, adapting to the world we build. Neon lights replace bonfires, costumes replace animal hides, but the reason endures. We gather together to face what we cannot explain, and we give it a story. That is the secret of humanity. We turn our fears into tales, our shadows into characters, our endings into beginnings. The Celts knew it when they spoke to the dead by firelight. The Victorians knew it when they told ghost stories by the hearth. And we know it still when we turn out the lights and press play on something that makes our hearts race. In this way, Halloween becomes more than ritual. It becomes language, a night where the living and the lost can share the same silence, where the storyteller, the listener, and the spirit all sit by the same flame. And perhaps that is why we keep returning to it, year after year, because deep down, we all long to speak across that divide and to be heard. Fear fades, but the story remains. Look closer and you will see that Halloween is a bridge between cultures, between worlds, between what was and what might be. It began as Samhain, passed through saints and spirits, sailed across oceans, and now belongs to everyone. In Mexico, candles and flowers guide the departed on the Dia de los Muertos, a cousin of Halloween, sharing the same heartbeat of remembrance. In Japan, lanterns float on rivers for Oban. In Haiti, the Fête Gede calls the spirits to dance. Each speaks the same truth in a different tongue, that love does not die, it transforms. Every culture lights a fire to say the same thing. We remember you. So when pumpkins glow and laughter fills the dark, know that it is not just play. It is something ancient and sacred, dressed in costume so it may walk unnoticed among us. And as long as we tell these stories, the bridge will hold. Now, as the night deepens and the candles burn low, Halloween returns to what it has always been, a quiet conversation between the living and the unseen. You may feel it tonight, in the stillness between sounds, in the flicker of a shadow that shouldn't move. You may think it imagination, but the old world would call it company. Light another candle, set it by the window, let it shine into the dark. Somewhere, someone will see it, a soul, a memory, a whisper carried through time, and know that they are not forgotten. This is the true heart of Halloween, not terror, but tenderness, a night to remember that we are stories too, flickering briefly, but bright enough to be seen. And when the last flame fades, it leaves behind something the wind cannot steal, the warmth of being remembered. When dawn finally breaks after Halloween, the world feels quieter, emptied of its ghosts, yet somehow fuller for having known them. The candles gutter out, the masks are set aside, and what remains is a stillness that hums like the last note of a song. In that moment, we sense what the ancients knew, that the line between the living and the dead is not a wall, but a veil thin as breath, soft as memory. The Celts lit fires to honor it. We light pumpkins. The act is the same, a promise that the dark may fall, but we will always answer it with light. And though the costumes fade and the laughter quiets, something deeper lingers. It is the understanding that remembrance is a kind of magic, the only magic that truly lasts. Every story told, every name spoken, every flame set to flicker in the cold, becomes a bridge between hearts, between times, between worlds. That bridge is what keeps us human. If you stand beneath the stars on the 1st of November, you can almost hear them. The echoes of every Halloween before this one, the bonfires of Samhain crackling in the wind, the footsteps of masked children running home, the low hum of voices remembering their dead. The world turns, yet the feeling is the same. A small defiance against the endless dark, a celebration not of death, but of the thread that binds us to all who came before. Maybe that is why stories like these endure, because they remind us that time is not a line, but a circle, and every year we return to the place where light and shadow meet. Halloween is not just a night of ghosts, it is a night of gratitude for the warmth we have, for the love that outlasts us, for the chance to stand in the dark and still feel unafraid. And as the sun rises on All Saints' Day, it carries the faint scent of smoke and the memory of 1,000 fires still burning somewhere unseen. So when next Halloween comes and the air grows crisp, light your candle again. Carve your pumpkin. Tell a story by its glow. Do it not for fright, but for remembrance. Because every flame, every whisper, every gentle chill is part of something ancient, a conversation that began before words, when humans first learned to wonder at the dark. We celebrate not because we love fear, but because fear reminds us we are alive. We tell stories of the dead to remember that life is precious, brief, and worth lighting a fire for. The ghosts of Samhain are still with us, smiling through time. They stand at the edge of the firelight, watching the living dance, knowing they are remembered. And when the final spark drifts upward, fading into the black, it does not vanish. It joins the stars, the oldest fires of all. Through every age, through every retelling, Halloween has remained a mirror. It shows us who we are when the light grows thin. Not the monsters we fear, but the souls who still reach for warmth. In its glow, we see the echo of every story ever told, every whispered name, every trembling candle lifted against the night. We see the courage of those who kept the fires burning when the world turned cold. We celebrate them with laughter now, with costumes and candy. Yet behind the smiles, something sacred stirs. It is the same pulse that beat beneath the drums of Samhain, the same breath that moved through the churches of All Hallows, the same hush that fills every quiet room when the lights go out. To tell a ghost story is to keep that pulse alive. To speak of the unseen is to invite memory to sit beside us. And perhaps that is why Halloween will never die, because it isn't only about what haunts us, it's about what connects us. Each year when October ends, we find ourselves drawn back to the same questions. What lies beyond sight? Where do our loved ones go? What will remain of us when we are gone? We may never find the answers, but we keep asking, and that is what gives the night its power. Halloween is humanity's oldest conversation with the dark, and the dark, if you listen closely, always answers softly. It answers through stories, through dreams, through the gentle sound of the wind outside when the fire begins to fade. It tells us that endings are only pauses, and that remembrance is another kind of eternity. So we light our lanterns and we tell our tales, not to summon fear, but to remind ourselves that we belong to something vast, ancient, and beautiful. We are the living ghosts of those who came before, and one day, others will remember us the same way. Now the night is almost over. The stars above are faint with dawn. Somewhere, a candle still flickers, holding on a moment longer before the first light of day. It burns for every story that has ever been told on this night, and for every listener who has ever leaned closer to hear. The veil will close soon, but not forever. Never truly does. It only waits until the next time we gather, the next time a voice speaks softly into the quiet. Do you remember? And the dark will answer, as it always has. Yes, I remember you. So rest now and let the fires fade. The ghosts will walk again, and the stories will find their way back to us. Because Halloween is not just one night of the year, it is every night we choose to keep the light burning. When morning comes, the spell of the night does not break. It softens. The candles cool to wax, the masks lie still, and the streets fall silent beneath drifting leaves. Yet in every quiet home, a trace of the night remains, a warmth in the air, a story in the mind. That is how the old magic survives, not in thunder or ghosts, but in memory. The tales live on through us, whispered and reshaped, passed from one generation to the next. We are the keepers of the flame now. Every time we tell a story, light a candle, or carve a face into a pumpkin, we carry the same hope our ancestors carried. That light can outlast darkness, and love can outlast time. So when the shadows lengthen again next year and the veil begins to thin, remember that you are part of that ancient circle. The same fear, the same wonder, the same need to know that what we love is never truly lost. Halloween is not a night of endings. It is a promise that the story continues. Listen now. In the hush that follows the fire, you can still hear them. The old voices of the world, whispering through the wind, through the rustle of dry leaves, through the spaces between words. They say, "Remember us as we remember you." It is not sorrow they speak. It is gratitude. Gratitude for the stories told, the lights lit, the moments shared, for every frightened laugh, every soft breath, every heart that still dares to feel wonder in the dark. The world spins forward, seasons turn, and the living keep watch. But one truth remains unchanged, that memory is stronger than time, and love is the one fire the dark cannot steal. So when next the night of spirits comes and the air grows cold, take comfort. The ghosts who walk beside you are not strangers. They are the echoes of love itself, ancient, gentle, eternal. And as you stand beneath the moon, you might just hear the faintest whisper, "We're still here." And so we come full circle, from the ancient hills of Samhain to the candlelit windows of tonight. The fire burns smaller now, but its light still reaches across centuries, across worlds. Remember this, dear listener. The dark is never empty. It is filled with stories, with voices, with love that refuse to fade. So when you blow out your candle tonight, do it gently and whisper a thank you to those who came before. Somewhere beyond the veil, they will hear you and smile. This has been The Origins of Halloween, a story of memory, magic, and light in the dark, told by Sleepy Mysteries and Regina Sage Monroe. If you enjoyed this tale, remember to subscribe for more true mysteries, gentle hauntings, and stories that linger softly in the heart long after the last word fades. And I leave you with this thought: perhaps ghosts are not the dead at all, but the memories of love, refusing to let the dark win.